Hi guys. So recently I've been quite interested in this subject called philosophy, and it's about asking the whys and getting big answers to big questions, and I just love every single process of it because I guess there's something so special about trying to find answers to questions that may not even have any answers in the first place. So philosophy just means the love of wisdom. And I was reading the Bible one day, or not one day, like this week, and I rediscovered this Bible character. His name is Solomon, and he's known to be the wisest man in the Bible, or the wisest man of all time. And why is that so? It's because of this particular verse right here. I have it pulled up right here, which is Second Chronicles chapter 1 verse 7 onwards. So I'll read to you what is it. It says, "That night God appeared to Solomon and said to him, 'Ask for whatever you want me to give you.' Solomon answered God, 'You have shown great kindness to David my father, and have made me king in his place. Now, Lord God, let your promise to my father David be confirmed, for you have made me king over a people who are as numerous as the dust of the earth. Give me wisdom and knowledge that I may lead these people, for who is able to govern this great people of yours?'" Verse 11. God said to Solomon, "Since this is your heart's desire, and you have not asked for wealth, possessions, or honor, nor for the death of your enemies, and since you have not asked for a long life for wisdom, but for wisdom and knowledge to govern my people, over whom I have made you king, therefore wisdom and knowledge will be given you. And I will also give you wealth, possessions, and honor, such as no king who was before you ever had, and none after you will have." So this short excerpt, or like this short passage, really showed me a few things. Not only it showed me the humility of Solomon, who doesn't want all the wealth and the material possessions, but rather he wanted wisdom. And I think, even though God loved the answer because it was not materialistic things, or things of the world, like this churchy buzzword, but I believe it's because of Solomon's specific calling. What do I mean by that? So imagine for me, you're Solomon. Solomon is David's son, King David's son, and he's the successor of King David. So David left a huge legacy behind. David was the most well-liked guy in the whole entire country, and he was like just a really, really, really great guy in general. And also he was known as the man after God's heart, and he was favored by both God and both men. So if you're Solomon, if you're his son and his successor, I would feel pretty scared and overwhelmed that I will not be able to, live up to his expectations, or I may not be able to live up to the legacy that he's left behind, because those are big shoes to fill. Like those are really, really big shoes to fill. And Solomon, knowing all of this, still decided to step into his calling, which was to eventually be king and step into his destiny. So when God appeared to him in his sleep, God asked him for whatever he wanted. And Solomon could have easily said, he wanted whatever David had: possessions, money, wealth, power, everything. He could have said the same thing, like, "Give me what my father David had." But instead, he said wisdom and knowledge. Why? It's because he not only accepted his destiny, he accepted God's purpose for him, he accepted God's will for him, God's plan for him of being the next king. He also embraced it to a point that he knows that he's unable to reach the level that David had if not for God's help. And I think that's the most beautiful thing about Solomon in this passage, in this excerpt, is because he was willing to be humble enough to acknowledge that he is unable to be as great as David without God's help. So he's asking for God's help in the form of wisdom and knowledge to help him be the king that David always was. And I think that was one of the takeaways that I found from this excerpt. And it really reminded me of, our calling, our destiny, our purpose. Sometimes it may scare you, sometimes it may be a very scary thing, but if you're willing to embrace it and step into it, I believe, if you are humble enough to ask God to help you through it, God will be able to guide you through it and move you through it. And I think that's the most powerful thing about being or having a relationship with Christ. It's about this symbiotic relationship with him and you. I thought that was all that I learned from this excerpt or Solomon. But unfortunately, or fortunately rather, I learned something else, and this is the bigger takeaway. So, like every good story, there must be an ending. You may be wondering, if you haven't read the story of Solomon, whether he really was a greater king than David, or was he as good as his father David? Well, spoiler alert, unfortunately, he wasn't the greatest king. He wasn't remembered to be the greatest king of all time. He was instead remembered to have hundreds of wives, hundreds of concubines, and even those wives and concubines had their own pagan gods, and he went to worship those pagan gods. He was the one that built the temple for God, for Yahweh, for this God, but yet he went, at the end of his life, he went and turned around to other gods instead, and disregarded Yahweh. So I think that's a very stark reminder to me that even though Solomon, who had all the wisdom, all the knowledge, and even God promised him wealth, possessions, and honor at the same time, still managed to fall short of the favor of God. And I mean, I don't know about you, but that's incredibly humbling for me, because I'm nowhere near Solomon nor David. I'm not royalty. I'm not as smart as him. I'm not as wise as him. I wish to be. That's why I'm doing philosophy now. But something tells me that you may have everything you have in life. You may have all the money, all the wealth, all the knowledge, all the wisdom even, but yet God will still disregard you, or you still may fall short of God's favor. Why is that so? I believe because God is not looking for people who are wise, smart, rich, have everything got themselves together. I don't think he's looking for those people. It's good that you have those, but that's not the main point that he was driving at. God was looking at the heart. So when David said, God give me wisdom and knowledge to govern the people, your people, he's humbling himself and being obedient to God's calling for his life, to be able to govern the people of Israel. And he is asking God for his help. So that's why God honored him, because he was humble, he was he really wanted God's help, and he was genuine about it. That's why he got what he wanted. But at the end of his life, he may not have exactly stayed the path that he had when he first took the throne. And yeah, that's a stark reminder for all of us that even though we may be the best person in grades, the best person in studies, the best person in intelligence, wisdom, all these kind of key buzzwords that society really throws on us, we may not get God's favor in the end, or we may not please God in the end because of what he's looking for. He's looking for obedience. He's looking for obedience. He's looking for humility, and he's looking for people who are willing to trust him and follow him in whatever plan he is leading you to. Even though it may be really hard, even though your destiny may be not what you expect or not what you want, I still believe God is able to make a way to help us and to help you develop this sort of love for him and develop this sort of walk with him. So, in conclusion, what we can learn from Solomon in this short passage, maybe 4 verses, 7 to 11, 4 verses, yeah, is that number one is step into your calling, embrace your calling that God has given to you, no matter how scary, and be humble enough to ask for his help and for his wisdom and for his knowledge to be able to give to be imparted to you, so that you'll be able to step forward in your faith. Cannot talk. And secondly, even though you may have everything together, even though you may think that you have everything together, even though you may be the most intelligent person, or you may think that you're the smartest guy in the room, you may not have God's favor still, because God is not looking for intelligence. God is not looking for that quality of you. He's looking for humility. He's looking for obedience. He's looking for being surrendered to him. And I think that's these 2 very important points for me, even as I read these 4 verses, and even as I was reading through philosophy and learning about philosophy now, even though I may have this newfound knowledge of wisdom or whatever Plato or Socrates or all these people say, even though I may have a larger knowledge bank, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. All that matters to God is whether I'm humble enough to follow His plan and to say yes to Him when at all times, and trust and obey in His plan for my life. So yeah, thanks so much for watching. Oh wait, it's this hand. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. See you guys next time. Okay, bye.